Hi everybody, Jeff Smith here again in the golf studio. I want to talk to you a little bit about training. Some basic things that are good and then pretty darn important for you. I work with a lot of golfers. I work with beginners, I work with teenagers, I work with younger kids, I work with intermediate golfers, I work with really good golfers. But you know, one thing that I find is some inconsistencies in their setup. And a lot of times, the alignment, the foot position, the ball position, it gets a little messy. Sometimes we're hitting different shots and we stand differently, but we still have to come back and say, okay, what's best for me on a shot-to-shot basis? Just a regular stock shot. Well, you know, so I have some things, some really good tools at my disposal. And one of them is just one of these simple alignment sticks that we always use. But the other is these ProStantz foot pads. Because these, I can put these on the ground right where I want my feet every time. They got these great little spikes on the bottom. And so what I do is I'll put them down there and I'll get my stance. I found that my stance, now not everybody's is the same, but my stance, my feet are underneath my shoulders. My right foot's back a little bit from my left. My left foot's got a little bit of flare out to it. Not everybody needs that. Some people are a little bit different in how they swing and what they need. But to train is you got to start doing something the same way all the time, and these really help. So I use these with all of my students, and I encourage my students to go out and buy some of these because, heck, they're inexpensive, but boy, they sure maintain something very important. So I've got an alignment stick. I'm going to put the alignment rod on the ground right in the middle so I know where the back of my golf ball is, and I always put it to talk about where the back of the golf ball is because that's the part we're going to hit. So I really like to talk about where these things really are so we can begin to see them. So if we learn where to put these, and then we just step in, and we start to recognize some things like ball position, foot placement, how wide my stance is. If I start to recognize some of those things, because I've got these great visual aids, well, these foot pads are more than good visual aids. They're there to stabilize you. They make sure that you, let's say you're practicing outside, and you're standing in the same spot time after time after time, and next thing you know, you're wearing a spot into the ground, and then you want to shuffle around, and then you might start messing up with alignment, stance width, foot flare, ball position. You might start messing that stuff up. So when you train, I tell people, hey, look, just train your setup. Let's just think about this. If I just do this at home, and I realize what this is, and I learn to get there, each and every time I step out, I step back on the pads, I step in, next thing you know, I've got myself a routine that I physically recognize, that I visually recognize. These things are wonderful trainers because they don't let me get off on some tangent like I want to stand up and hit some different shot. Now, this is the one we want to train the stock shot. I want to put these in that position so I get comfortable with that, so I train it all the time, so I go to it all the time and I know what I'm going to get. So when you're training just your base swing, put these foot pads down where we found that the best width of stance is. Now, for all my students, I already go through that with them. And so we find their best stance width, we find their best foot flare, we find the best ball position relative to all those things, and we get the grip on, and then bang, here we go. And they hit the shot, and then they're a lot happier that they can repeat because they started with the right base. So again, get yourself some of these pads, click on the link, and find out these things are great. They're going fast, so you might want to grab some.